Let's talk about life, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the truth and consciousness, divinity. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about love.
Welcome to Spiritual Nerd, and I'm your host, Ninette Terhart, and today we are geeking out with Stefanie Finn and Lloyd Lapp, and we are talking about holy relationships. Welcome, you two. So lovely to see you, and thank you so much for joining me. And what I'd love to do is just share a little bit about both Stefanie and Lloyd have been students of A Course in Miracles for 20 years. After decades of living on their own, they have appeared to collide on this plane and feel they have embarked on an exquisite adventure of a holy relationship together to be lovingly utilized through guidance from the Holy Spirit. So I am so excited to have you guys on, and I would love you to share how it all sort of unfolded.
So would you like to start?
I guess when the two illusions collided.
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, so I was on my own for 20 years, and I never ever had any idea that I would ever be with anybody again. It just wasn't in my aura. It wasn't in my preference. I didn't have the need or the desire to be with anyone. I really felt that in this lifetime, my script was just to be with myself, to focus on my awakening full time. It was the most important thing to me. And so, but the Spirit had other plans, because I understand now that once you find salvation within yourself, different things can happen. And in the case of my coming together with Lloyd, one of the messages that I heard was that because you both found salvation within yourself, this was laid out for you. So this relationship was laid out for you. So Spirit got me to Boston. So, I just very spontaneously woke up one morning. I saw the Boston Conference was being advertised, and I clicked the button and paid for the ticket. Just like that. I was divinely guided. And before I went, ego tried to stop me from going, because that's what happens. Like when you're on a path to greatness, the ego, as we know, starts to get vicious, and it pulls out all the stops. And so this is what happened to me. But something happened. A friend of mine intervened and said, Stefanie, stick to the plan. Go. And I knew, even when it was a bit of a bumpy ride and the ego was trying to stop me to go, I knew that I was actually going to be going. So I went to the conference, and the last night there, I was just sitting in the lobby, and Lloyd came in out of left field and sat in front of me, and my life hasn't been the same since. So I know now in hindsight that was all divinely orchestrated. So that's the story of the intersection. And I also understand that Holy Spirit was trying to get us there, and so it was a beautiful unfolding. Yeah, so that's the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just, I actually joined a dating service before the Boston Conference. My friends talked me into it, and I went out on one date, and Spirit just intervened and showed me without any reservation that this is not the route that I'm supposed to take. So I canceled my subscription when I got home and said, okay, you lead the way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I just trusted that something was going to take place in Boston, and I can't explain it. It's just that I just had an intuition that I was to wait until after I went to Boston and then pursue sharing with somebody.
Right.
And then, of course, when we met in the lobby, and I found out that she was on the same plane as I was flying down, I thought that was pretty interesting. And then we found out that we were on the same plane returning, and we ended up having to sit together. There was no other seats. The plane was full, and we were together.
Wow.
So I knew without a doubt that something was definitely happening here.
So let me read something here. David Hoffmeister has posted something on about holy relationships. if I may, because I would like to start to get into some of the purification that we did chat about, Stefanie, and I think that's very important because a lot of people are very curious about holy relationships. You know, we know that the real holy relationship is with God, but we have these forms that we create in order to live that divine way on this plane, you know, if we become aware enough. So he writes here, the holy relationship can be described as loving, trusting, open, honest, kind, free, spontaneous, present, affectionate, non-judgmental, inclusive, happy, joyful, peaceful, extending, communicating, healing, and very simply, wonderful. Holy relationships is a shared purpose, and only the Holy Spirit's purpose can be truly extended or shared. The attempt to share ego concepts and beliefs is therefore the attempt to share nothing. And nothing cannot be shared because only love is capable of being extended or shared. Love simply extends and shares, being what it is. So, Stefanie, you, I know, experienced some real kind of root-pulling issues for your inner self as you sort of were deciding to meet for the first time after the conference. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. First thing I want to share is some guidance that I received after Lloyd and I met was that, well, there's several things actually. First of all, a holy relationship doesn't start off as a holy relationship. You know, it starts off as a special relationship, but it can shift into a holy relationship very quickly with the intent and the motivation. You know, when the motivation is awakening, it can. The other thing that Spirit said to me very clearly was that this relationship is not for you. This is for the purpose of God. You know, this is God's purpose. You're coming together here. It's not to be used. It's not for you, but it's to be used by God. And so naturally, that's going to require pretty accelerated awakening. Right. So that really started to happen. So as I met Lloyd, this was like all of a sudden I was catapulted into this accelerated awakening. And I mean, I have been working with, you know, not only the Holy Spirit, but ascended masters, which of course are a manifestation of the Holy Spirit, very intimately guiding me through this process. And the process actually started in Boston at the last presentation that I went to. I'm going to very quickly explain this because this is really the beginning of this, you know, this extended and accelerated purification process.
Please.
I walked into a meeting late, and as soon as I walked in, there were it was 10 minutes into this exercise that they were doing. Now, normally I don't really enjoy group exercises at conferences because sometimes you find them a little bit superficial or they feel forced. But in this case, it was exactly appropriate because a woman was standing in front of me. She was representing the presence of innocence. And my job was to walk towards her. And each time I would take a step, I was to let go of something. I was to forgive something. So I just did it because because I was late getting in there, the ego didn't have a chance to defend itself. So I just, I was caught unawares. So I simply stepped towards her. And when I did, something really startling happened. I heard the Holy Spirit in my mind say, "It is time for you to let go of your unwillingness to listen." So that being said, I just went with it and I felt this leave me. So it's almost like a flock of birds, you know, took this away from me, the unwillingness to listen. And then I heard the voice say, "And now it is time to let go of your disobedience." And again, I felt this whoosh, very gentle but very powerful, leave me. Like from the top of my head, I felt it. So this exercise began a 3-month purification process whereby myself and a friend, Linda, who is a dear friend of yours as well, who, by the way, now this is how Holy Spirit works. Linda lives in Pennsylvania. I live in St. John's, Newfoundland. But Spirit got us together to do this process whereby almost every day we would wake up and we would be given a laundry list of things to let go of. And I would spend the day exposing all this stuff. Like, this was huge. This was absolutely huge. So this, has been an exponential process of letting go. And this is part, of our relationship, because we have to be prepared to be used as God is going to be using us. And we don't have a clue how that's going to happen or what that's going to look like.
Right. Lloyd, do you want to share some things that have really been surfacing for you?
Well, one thing I do really want to share, because I want this to go down, and so, that's understandable, is that we decided to go to the airport together, right? And the next day, and share a cab. And we would split the cab. Well, it so turns out that when it came around to paying the cab, Stefanie had no money.
I knew this was going to come up.
Anyway, it all worked out perfectly. I paid, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But we had a great conversation on the plane coming back, and we parted company in Toronto because I got up there and stuff had to keep going to Newfoundland. And I said to her right then and there, and I don't do this kind of thing, it was just like out of the blue, was that I was coming to see her in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And within 2 or 3 days, I had booked the flight. And it just went so smooth that I didn't even fly out of Toronto. I actually, Spirit told me to fly out of Ottawa, and I couldn't understand that. And then I realized that 2 of the people that I was with at the conference in Boston lived in Ottawa.
Oh.
So it worked out. I could park in their driveway. They drove me to the airport, and I stayed at their house.
Love that.
Wasn't my plan whatsoever, because I hadn't even thought about it.
And so it's so interesting how when you really start to follow the guidance of Holy Spirit, and it's not for yourself. I mean, now you've joined on this plane and you realize that it's something bigger than yourselves. Things just start to unfold, like we talked about, like being carried across that field on a beautiful summer day. This sort of effortless unfolding. And I think it's important that you mentioned that, Stefanie, in the beginning, that holy relationships do not start out as holy. More times than not, they start out as special, right? The neediness of each other,
No, we're bypassing that.
Yeah, we've bypassed it. But for the most part, to be honest, for the most part, it's already been bypassed.
Actually, when you described what David Hoffmeister said, he's really a good friend of mine also. It's the absolute truth. Yeah. That's the way we are right now.
Yeah.
And that's why we feel that it is a holy relationship. Without even truly working at it, we feel it's already happening.
Yeah, it's sort of like been gifted because of like you were saying. It's been gifted because you've done so much of the purification on your own on these years, the time, space years. But now, so people watching that are still involved in special relationships, can you sort of maybe share some stuff that would encourage them in their own internal energy to start to have a holy relationship or consider that?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say a couple of things, then Steph can take over. But I think one of the most important things, if you're on the same path, it must be trust and total freedom. It's without having any demands of your partner. Your partner has to be free. And I think that's the most important thing. But the trust, and I'll tell you this, for me, I was 99.9% trusting until I met Stefanie and talked to her about a bit of stuff that's happened to her where trust came in. And I sort of flipped over to the 100% right there and then. And since I did that, since I just put it out there that I'm in 100% to pure trust, my life has been bananas. So I can say the amount of guidance that has come through, it just can't be mistaken. And I've been at it for a while, and I've had a lot of guidance, but it's tripled since Stefanie and I got together.
And that trust you're talking about, Lloyd, is that trust with that inner Holy Spirit, that inner guidance.
The inner guidance, not to do anything without that inner guidance.
Yeah.
Just, it's like lesson 155. I step back and let him lead the way.
Yeah.
And it has to be that way.
And trust is an acronym for to rely upon spirit totally. You see, because we're not asked to rely 99.9%. I mean, when you give your life up to God and your mind to God, it's like we have to live in a different way.
Yeah.
So, you're living in the world, but you're not of it any longer. And it is to live in a way that is not compromising.
Yeah.
Right? To not compromise those principles.
Well, because the 99.9%, there's still the 1.1% of serving another master, and you just can't serve two masters.
Yes, because you'll never be happy, you'll never be satisfied, and you'll never see the principles and God's laws at work.
Yeah.
Right? Like I am under no laws but God's. And the world is going to come in and the ego is going to come in with all kinds of yes buts and, trying to keep your foot in the world, but it never really works.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to add that, you were mentioning people that are wanting this, because I have come across a lot of people that have said to me, I want this too. And if you can do it, I can do it. And in my mind, and sometimes out loud, I say, yes, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
In preparation for this type of unfolding. Again, to repeat myself, we found salvation in ourselves first, and this is why this step has been laid out for us. There's a lot of work. I've gone through a lot of excruciating moments and, all kinds of challenges and letting go and releasing, but it really wasn't until I learned how to go on 100% forgiveness path that it really changed for me. And, I really felt that commitment.
Right.
The spirit. Yeah.
The ego does not go gently.
No. God, no.
I always say you cannot ride two horses because you'll split your pants.
That is awesome. Well, the comic relief is Lloyd, and we love him. Yes. Fantastic. I did want to bring up one thing. So what I find interesting in the ego illusion that we've created here on this plane is, we're so motivated and driven by these romantic love grandioso scenes that we see in movies, and songs are written about it, and blah, blah, blah. And when I started to get involved in the Course in Miracles, I started to realize that that's just a reflection of our deepest desire to be with God, our creator, whatever you want to call it, source, Allah, whatever,
Right.
And so, it's interesting that we will just keep projecting that desire in form until, like you said, Stefanie, it is a purification process. And there are couples that are together that might go through that together. They might have to purify within themselves as they still are on this plane. But when you realize that you are creating that, you're making that form to reflect what it is that you can heal in your mind in order to attain that holy relationship and be submersed in it. That's also that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work no matter what way you cut it.
Yeah.
But I was going to say something then about, I tell you, during this purification process, a couple of the messages and affirmations, started coming to me from the Holy Spirit. And one is that we must put God first. Even in the holy relationship, right? We must put God first. And I was going through some fears, fear of loss was really one of the hidden beliefs that I've had for many, many years, and I guess maybe even many lifetimes. Spirit said to me, the fear of loss is simply the fear of losing heaven, which we cannot lose. Right? And so the other thing that came to me as well, in terms of Lloyd, I started getting guidance messages about us and our past, and that we have spent many lifetimes together. And so the forgiveness that is occurring right now and has been since we met is happening on very high levels. There is forgiveness of all of our lifetimes occurring simultaneously. And so we don't have any control over that. That's all under Christ's control. We're just going for the ride. I was just going, I thought to myself, you know what? I don't have any control over this. It's just my responsibility to do as the Holy Spirit asks me to do, and to forgive as each emotion came up. right? That's my only responsibility. The Holy Spirit takes care of all the consequences. He will take care of everything. But can you imagine if you have all these lifetimes that we've been together, and I know that to be true because of the strength of the bond between us, that we have spent many lifetimes together. And so you know that if all that is happening, you have to put it under Christ's control. We're together for 4 months. It hasn't just been 4 months. It's been much longer than that.
Right. In time and space. Yes, definitely. You know, it's interesting you bring that up because we just watched I Heart Huckabees. I don't know if you've seen it because, you know, David Hoffmeister talks about it a lot. I saw it so long ago, but it was so interesting to watch it again from the A Course in Miracles perspective, because at one point, the two main characters, you know, Lily Tomlin and Dustin Hoffman, they're like, here's the point right here. You two have been going at it for so many lifetimes. Like, here's the point where you can like break free and like set a whole new frequency, you know, and heal this part of your mind. Like, and it was just so brilliant. So when you brought that up, yes, you know, I feel the same in my partnership. You know, there's been so many lifetimes of experience, and here now we have an opportunity to create the healing, to open, to have that healing happen in the mind, so we don't keep doing the dance.
Absolutely.
The ego
it
dance.
takes work. It takes work.
Yeah.
And trust between each partner too.
Yeah. And
crucial.
Lloyd, did you go through some similar stuff individually before meeting Stefanie, like a lot of purification?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some horrendous stuff. I mean, you don't get to this point easy. It does take work. Because like the Course will tell you, the ego goes from suspiciousness to viciousness.
Yeah.
And it says, do not stop on the outside ring of fear. And, you know, that sets in and you have to get yourself through it.
Yeah,
it's like another thing, it says, romance is a vain attempt to fill a gap that doesn't exist.
Wow.
And most romances are all about, well, what can you do to make me happy?
Right.
That never freaking works.
And we know that, right? You know, it's
You have to find your inner happiness.
Yeah.
And then you can share that with somebody. But until you find that, forget it. It'll never work.
Well, I'm so excited to see what unfolds in your journey on this plane together. I feel as though you are going to really inspire a lot of healing of minds for people, and especially in relationships, because there is that kind of wall that people hit in the ego plane. We just do. And so I'm going to definitely have you guys back on the show as we see things unfold, so we can talk, you know, more and get even deeper and deeper as you have these experiences, because this will really, really inspire people. It just will. It already has.
One more short story.
Please.
Here we go.
Well, actually, 2 more short stories. We were on our way to Geekin yesterday or the day before, and we're passing this place called the Black River Cheese Factory.
Right.
And I'm getting this message that I should stop for cheese because we really like their cheese, right? But I'm ignoring it. I'm saying, oh no, we got to get on. We're going somewhere else first, and maybe on the way back we'll get cheese. And as that transpired, Stefanie said to me, do you think we should stop and get cheese? And I went, you're freaking right. Right now we're stopping to get cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens all the time. You know, the guidance is so like in unity. There's so much unity. And we both trust the Holy Spirit so much. We are 100% in guidance, and that has only increased.
Right.
For me, and you know, you mentioned that as well. Like the guidance it's just exponential. It's like total and complete trust. And
there's just one final remark here. We went to a lavender factory or farm, not too far from here, about 40 minutes from here. And it was just beautiful. And then, you know, we went to buy a few things. And of course, Stefanie didn't have her card with her.
That's the other advantage of having a holy relationship. You can trust in the other person 100%. I came off with my debit card and my credit card.
Anyway, it's a good thing it's a holy relationship.
It's also very humbling. It's very humbling as well.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you two so much for this sort of, you know, introductory interview. And again, I'll have you back on because I just know there's going to be stuff to just sort of the transparency that's involved really in
Absolutely.
sharing.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
very,
So-
very good point.
The
Is that
best is yet to come. That's the
Hey.
message we keep getting.
Yeah. What? Tell me the message again, Lloyd, because you cut out.
The best is yet to come.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love
Yeah.
that. Well,
That's for
kids,
everyone, by the way.
that's for everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.
The best is yet to come. The
Yeah.
more you trust yourself, the Holy Spirit, it gets better and better and better.
We love you.
I love you guys. You're fantastic. Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time, you guys, and enjoy the rest of your trip, Steph.
Bye.
You can cut out that part about having no money.
Love you guys. Well, I want to thank Stefanie Finn and Lloyd Lapp so much for joining me on the show today. And we were discussing the holy relationship, and I know I'll have them back very soon. Thank you so much. And of course, I look forward to the next time we'll be geeking out with you.
Let's talk about life, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the truth and consciousness, divinity. Let's talk about God.